If you've been side-eyeing Substack, like, is this another shiny object or is there something big brewing here? Well, today's episode is your sign to stop scrolling, sit your ass down, and pay attention. Because here's the thing, most founders, especially my B2B clients, they're drowning on LinkedIn and it feels like a red ocean mosh pit over there right now because more people are creating content. A lot of it is absolute and utter rubbish, and it's harder and harder to get your reach and visibility out there. Everyone is shouting, and that's making people feel exhausted. And it feels like they're fighting the same algorithm, which should love them back, but it doesn't. But what if there was a platform out there? One that wasn't saturated yet? What if there was a place where depth wins, consistency compounds, and the stuff that you do post actually gets through to your ideal clients because you're early, not late to the party? Well, that's why I brought in today's guest, Landon Poburan, the guy who's been quietly building a powerhouse presence on Substack for over 2 years, while most of us didn't even realize the party had started over there. And the bit that's freaking wild, Substack is sitting at about 35 million monthly active users. That's tiny compared to 1.2 billion users on LinkedIn that we're used to. Which means this is the first real early adopter moment most of us might see in our business lifetimes. So Landon is going to talk through why Substack's vibe is like nothing like the other traditional social media platforms you know, love or hate. He's going to talk through how to repurpose everything you already have instead of doing more work. Why discoverability on Substack hits a little bit differently, and how to show up without treating consistency like a punishment. And at one point, he's even going to say these words: consistency with expectation breeds resentment. And I know someone listening right now is literally going to feel like that's a good punch, because when he says it, oh my gosh, I definitely did. I'm also going to tell you where you can find him. And yes, you'll want to go and check him out on Substack and subscribe to his newsletter, because this man, he is building a movement and not a mailbox or a social media platform. And if you love today's episode and conversation afterwards, please do me a solid and make sure you go and listen to episode 158, where I break down my 7C LinkedIn success strategy, because these two platforms, they play beautifully together, and the strategy that works over there, Landon says, will probably work for you on Substack as well. So it's all about understanding the psychology behind visibility. All right, enough foreplay. Let's get into it. Landon, welcome to the Master Your Business podcast.
I am super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, seriously, I heard you speak in Alex Catoni's Brain Mastermind group, and I was like, oh my gosh, Substack, what the heck is this? And how do I learn more about it? So I'm like, I've got to bring Landon on my podcast so I can share it with all my listeners too. So Substack, what is it?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I've been writing on this platform for a little over 2 years, and it still seems like this little hidden gem that not many people know about. I kind of like to think about Substack as this amalgamation of Twitter, your blog, your email list, and your Facebook group. It has transformed a lot since I've been on the platform. It originated as kind of like a writing platform. So a lot of the original publications on there are, in politics or news and things like that. But it's really transformed into this place for creators that want to share their message and have an authentic voice. So it's really, they have this kind of like Twitter-like news feed. They have, your long form posts go out to people's email inboxes. And it's this place where it didn't kind of feel like social media, 2-3 years ago, but it is effectively social media today. But it has a completely different vibe because of the depth of the content that's on the platform. Now, that could be that it's a little early and we haven't kind of captured as much market share yet, but it's still fairly early days on this platform, which is really exciting for us as coaches and creators, because I just wrote a post, I think it was this morning, there's about 35 million monthly active users on the platform. When we contrast that to the platforms that we're used to, let's use like LinkedIn, for example, like your favorite platform, we got 1 billion users. So Substack is like a 30th of the size of a platform like LinkedIn, even smaller compared to something like, Facebook or Instagram and things along those lines. But we're starting to see people coming over to these platforms and creating really, really profitable businesses. And it has this unique way of creating depth and connection and rapport with your audience that I didn't really get when I was trying to be active on all of these other platforms. And it's really interesting because now I'm in this place of I want to spread the message. So now I'm trying to reemerge on these other platforms to talk about Substack, because the only way to spread the message is to be in places where people haven't quite heard about it yet. So that's kind of where I'm actually like reemerging right now on places like LinkedIn and soon to be other platforms. But in short, it is kind of like a text first written kind of like social platform. And the growth there is, from my experience and everybody else that I'm talking to, is kind of head and shoulders above what a lot of, coaches, creators and businesses and founders are seeing on other platforms that have just reached this large level of kind of like saturation within the market.
Okay, that's so interesting. And honestly, like I've seen one of my clients uses it. She started a newsletter on it earlier this year, and I've seen people on LinkedIn move over to it. So I've seen like Justin Welch, who's a LinkedIn influencer. And I mean, he posts about LinkedIn, but he uses Substack. And recently, some of the people who I've trained with brand strategy under, Martin Newmeyer and Andy Starr, those guys are over on Substack as well. And I'm like, hey, I need to get in on this. But like one of the things that I'm curious about, and I'm sure listeners are too, is like most of my clients, they hang out on LinkedIn and their ideal clients are on LinkedIn because they're B2B. All of my clients are pretty much B2B, I'd say, with the exception of one or two. So who are the people who are over there on Substack? Are they businesses? Are they consumers? Who are they?
It's an interesting conversation, and I have it quite often. So I'll talk with, coaches, and they're like, I don't think my audience is on Substack. And in some cases, I was chatting with a lady and she does brand strategy for hotels, resorts, and like Airbnb owners. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Like, there might not be as many of your people here yet. But the difference is, if we take a step back and understand where this platform is in kind of like its growth. So it's been around for 8 years. If we contrast that to Meta and LinkedIn, which have been, I believe, 22 years, they've been on the market. It's still like an emerging platform. So the way that I try and pose this to people is, yes, that may be correct. There may be fewer of your people on the platform right now, but I don't know anybody that is like, I'm so happy I didn't start posting on LinkedIn 3, 4, 5 years before I did. Or, I'm so glad I didn't start on TikTok when growth was really good. Or like, we all wish we were like the early adopter on a platform. And this is the first time that I've ever felt I've been in a position to be an early adopter on a platform. So I think the people that take advantage of this are going to be in a unique place in the coming future. The platform is growing rapidly. They are working very hard to start pulling creators from other platforms. And we're starting to see this transition. We have people, just like you said, Justin Welsh, Dan Coe. We have Gary Vaynerchuk. Just very recently, I applied for the job. I didn't get it, but he's hiring a Substack growth strategist and writer to bring his brand onto Substack. And if you listen to Gary Vee's podcast, who we all know is very dialed in with culture and what's happening and what's coming up, Substack is now part of his talk. If you listen to his podcast, it's part of just what he's speaking about when it comes to social. These are the signals we need to be picking up on and go, okay, maybe you're not going to go in there and get a high ticket client, or you're going to land, a 6-figure contract today. But what's that going to look like in 12 months from now or in 2 years from now? Those are the conversations that I'm really trying to encourage people to look at, and also understand that, okay, maybe that person isn't there, but what other opportunities are possibly there? There may be other things that you're just not even consciously aware of, or that may drop in 6 months from now, or you might land a deal or a podcast interview. Even for me, like I landed a presentation inside of Alex Catoni's mastermind because I was present on Substack. So there's so much out there. And I agree that, yeah, there's definitely going to be niches that aren't there, but there's like something like 18 or 20 different categories of publications on the platform. Marketing doesn't even have one. Business and education are quite small relative to some of the other ones, but there's like health and wellness and philosophy, literature, like technology. There's all of these people out there. And there's people that are making full-time livings from everything from, business publications to stuff about like, faith and religion to, working inside of like health and trauma to like talking about horses or knitting. There's a very diverse set of people that are making money on this platform when you kind of double tap and look closer into things. So it's definitely something that I'm now talking to a lot of people about and going, there's an opportunity here. We need to start thinking about how we can get your brand over there to be the dominant player now, so that as the platform grows, you're already established there.
Okay, I'm going to start a Substack about horse riding and knitting. How did you know, Landon? Seriously, joking aside. And with moving over, right? So I'm curious as well, because one of the things that I've really been thinking about, even for my own business, and one of the things that I really encourage clients to do is to repurpose content, to create long form first and then repurpose that. And I'm always saying marketing is a lesson in memorability. The goal is to be redundant with your marketing, that you're saying the same thing over and over and over again in 50 different ways, right? And that's how you make it stick and make it land, and it builds trust. So I'm curious how Substack would fit into a strategy like that. Or some of my clients would be podcast first strategy or YouTube first strategy. Some are LinkedIn first strategy. So where do you see Substack fitting into those types of strategies?
The really cool thing with how it integrates into an overall content strategy is that text is the basis of every single one of those things. So going from a podcast to Twitter is a little bit tricky. We got character count limits. We have just the culture of the platform is different. But when we start to think of, okay, podcasting and YouTube, first off, they can both be transcribed. There isn't character limits. They're both pieces of content that are focused on depth, building trust, building rapport, answering people's questions. That translates beautifully into written content. So going from a YouTube video on whatever it might be, you mentioned knitting, horse breeding. So I know nothing about either of those things, but let's say you have like a 25-minute YouTube video. I believe I was listening to one of your podcasts this morning talking about, creating irresistible hooks. Now, if you transcribed that with just a little bit of refinement is now something that people can read. And the reality of it is, you mentioned repurposing content, repeating the same message over and over again, is when we're trying to build a brand, the focus starts to shift a little bit. So I like to study brand and marketing and sales a lot. And there's this convergence of brand marketing, which is kind of like long-term. And then we have sales activation, which is generating sales. So a lot of like our paid advertising, our CTAs and launches, that's all sales activation. And that's always going to be more profitable in the short term. When we start to look at brand building, that's much more of a long-term endeavor. So we need to kind of maximize our reach. All things similar, like not, just trending and trend jacking and stuff like that, but people consume different ways. There's some people that want to watch, there's some people that want to listen, there's some people that want to read. And there's a lot of people, if we're focusing only on video content or only on podcasting, we're completely missing out on everybody who would prefer to read things. We're also missing out on just this other area of things like, yes, we have the SEO side of YouTube, but what I'm starting to see even in my own publication as I'm going through my stats and I'm like, oh, I got this much traffic from Google to my Substack. I got this much traffic from Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini. And I'm like, oh, like these articles, like ranking in AI is a thing. So there's this whole other kind of authority and brand building side that we're not considering. So going from podcasting and YouTube is a very easy transition into Substack because it's transcribing it, having just a refined structure, which can be created with AI, just having a prompt or a GPT that is taking that transcript and just restructuring it into a newsletter or a long form piece of written content. Very, very simple when it comes to the kind of like the mechanics of it. Going from LinkedIn is also super simple because it's already text-based. And the beautiful part about it is it works the other way as well. You can write a 800 word or a 2000 word article, which effectively, if we think of a podcast or a YouTube video, most of them are scripted. These can become your script and you can start with the written content and create your podcast based off of that, create your YouTube video based off of that, pull the short form content for LinkedIn, Twitter, Substack Notes, all of these other platforms. So it goes both ways really, really easily. And when I'm talking with people that are already have a YouTube channel or already have a podcast, those channels require them to be present. If you're recording a podcast, at least today, you have to be the one speaking it. If you're recording a YouTube video, you're the one that's there recording the YouTube video. You don't have to be the one sitting at the keyboard to post on Substack. So there is this dynamic of it doesn't require your face to be present there. So you can use your body of work and even expand it further with additional resources, which is some of the stuff that I'm currently working on creating right now. But there's like this whole untapped market that just joins to existing content strategy in like the most seamless of ways.
That's really interesting. And I think really helpful for people who might be considering the platform, or maybe even after today's episode, considering the platform and thinking, okay, is this more work? I think that's a really great way to alleviate that. And something I'm curious about. So I mentioned one of my clients is using it for a newsletter, and I see Justin Welch, he's using it for a newsletter, and so are the Level C guys. So I'm curious, how does that contrast to email marketing? So it's like a newsletter on Substack versus your newsletter via email. What's the difference?
So I would say that in an oversimplistic way, it's not really different. So if we're going to think of like other newsletter platforms, we got Beehive and we got Ghost, and we have all of these other, people sending out regular newsletters with MailChimp. Substack effectively does the same thing. So the vernacular and language on Substack, I do find a little confusing. I think they could do a better job with it. In the platform, they're called posts, which to me is like the worst word for something because we kind of identify everything as a post. But they're what I would call long form posts, would be a newsletter or an article is what goes out to people's email inbox, which is really cool because if we spend that time, you need to have, if you have a podcast, you also have to have an email list if you want to get it distributed to people. If you have a YouTube channel, like, yes, they're subscribed, but if you still want to get that in front of them guaranteed, you still need to have a list or another platform to be able to push it out in front of them. Substack, your subscribers, every time you hit publish, they're going to get that newsletter. So it is acting akin to email. Now, it isn't a full-fledged email marketing system with automations and tagging and all of those things, but you can filter out your email contacts based off of their engagement dates, what they've engaged with, if they've paid, all of those types of things. They just rolled out the ability to create welcome sequences for new subscribers. So you can see them, like these features are being developed. One of the key differences between Substack and something like, let's say you have an email newsletter just on Kit. or just on Beehive, is those don't really have a discoverability engine. So yes, you're sending out your weekly newsletter or whatever your frequency is, but you have to get people to your email list. And how are you doing that? So that person still needs to be on LinkedIn or on Instagram or on Twitter or running ads to get people on there. But within Substack, they've rolled out, which is called Notes, which is effectively, you can think of it as a Twitter feed inside of the platform, which just has massive discoverability. So with that, you can grow your entire platform from new followers and subscribers, building your email list, landing in the email people's inboxes, all within that platform. I'm of the belief I do like to parry it over to also still having an email list. Just as a marketer, we like to have a little bit more control over, post-purchase sequences and all of these things and sales sequences and launches that we like to have a little bit more control over. But for somebody that's looking to get started in more of a simplistic fashion, you can create these newsletters that go out, they show on your public feed, people can read them, they rank in search engines, they rank in AI. But you can also send out emails that don't show up publicly. So you can still treat it a little bit more similarly to just an email marketing software. So if you want to just throw out like a hand raiser email, get some feedback from people, you can do that. When you go live, it gets sent out to everybody's email address if you want with the click of a button. So there's a lot of capabilities that are very similar to email. I'm curious to see where they go with those features in the future, but you can see they're really trying to cater to being a hub for creators. So you have this social aspect of it. You have this depth content and landing in inboxes. Part of their philosophy is ownership. So you own your list. When we're on LinkedIn, you can't just export your followers. So
I
like
was
you've
going to
got,
ask that. Yeah. Do you
right?
own that? Can you export them to one of
Yeah.
those other platforms? You can. That's so cool.
Yeah. So you can export all of your subscribers. So if like worst case scenario, you want to go to Kit, well, you just export everybody and bring them over to Kit and just pick up your email marketing over there. So it's got a lot of these kind of like overlooked benefits that from the surface, you don't quite see. And they're starting to roll out, like you can now host your podcast on Substack. So it's got an RSS feed. You can import an existing one if you have one. And from there, you can go, when you publish an episode, it goes out to your email subscribers. So you can see they're trying to create this kind of like ecosystem to really support creators.
That's amazing. And what I think is pretty cool, I love the fact that it's so similar to email, but that you do have a little bit of control around that. Because there's always a fear, like on LinkedIn, you can be shadow banned. I've been in LinkedIn jail multiple times. There's always this fear, like, oh my God, what happens if I lose all my subscribers? But if you can export them, that's like a mega bonus for being on that platform. I love that. And a couple of questions that spring to mind on this are, first off, let's say LinkedIn. I just recently, for anybody who is looking at LinkedIn, have recorded an episode around my LinkedIn 7C success strategy. So this is the framework that I teach my clients for how to get visible and how to get clients on LinkedIn. And it works. And I'm curious, do you have a structure for the things that people should do when they show up on the platform? And I know there's no silver bullet. My framework isn't a silver bullet either. But we know, and it's been proven and tested, that if you do these things over this amount of time, you will get some results, assuming you do it reasonably well and consistently and all of that sort of stuff. But for Substack, what does that look like? And just to share another example for this, I'm talking about on LinkedIn. One of the things that I say to people is you don't need to post every single day. If you can't manage posting every single day, don't post every single day, but comment and do it intentionally and strategically. And we work through what that looks like. So what's the comparative on Substack?
In my core, and people might not like me saying this, I really don't believe it is that much different from the strategy that you grow with on all of the other platforms. They recently came out and said how the Substack algorithm works, and other platforms, they just want you to be scrolling and, they want watch time, and Substack, they're going to push stuff that gets subscribers. And I'm like, if we take a step back, quality content is what gets people to watch it and is what gets people to subscribe. So the root of it, what gets people to grow, is no different from platform to platform. So when I talk about strategy, it would be very akin, like you could just transplant your LinkedIn strategy most likely to Substack. I recommend people, it is kind of like the 5 stages of Substack growth that I recommend for people getting started. It's going to be slightly nuanced based off of somebody like yourself. Established brand, you know who you're working with, you know what your brand message is, you have your content pillars, you know what you're going to be posting about. You also have a library of existing content to get you started, so you're not starting from square one. That's definitely different. Getting started is going to be a little bit simpler in terms of you don't have to necessarily put as much thought into what you're creating, so to speak. Whereas somebody that's like, I'm going to create a Substack, I don't have an existing business, it's a little bit different in terms of you're going to be spending the first 3 to 6 months just kind of figuring shit out. Like, if you want to define your voice and figure out what you're going to sell, start writing, and you're going to figure it out while you're going through the process. I've spent the last 4 to 6 weeks reworking my brand messaging. And you know what? It would not have happened if I was just like, I'm just going to write this post, or I'm going to use AI to define it. It's like, no, I've been in there nonstop, kind of coming back multiple times a week, refining it. A lot of the process happens while we're kind of in the trenches and in the arena. There's a combination between content of long form content and short form content. Your long form content is what lands in people's inboxes, the email newsletter. So this is going to be longer, going to be more building trust, going in deeper with people, sharing your perspectives, getting people to buy into your message, providing value, etc. The thing about it is when you start and have 0 subscribers, you don't have any inboxes to land in. So you need to start getting subscribers. You can import an email list. So if you have 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, you can import that into Substack, and they will now receive your Substack newsletter. So people can do that as well. But Substack Notes is where you're going to focus for discoverability. My recommendation for people is you start by getting 1 weekly newsletter out to your audience every single week. Even if you have 2 subscribers, the reason I want people to focus on that is because you need to get into the consistent pattern of producing content. And if you get subscribers, that's what they're there to read. So you want to have this consistent content of getting out that long form content. It also becomes the simplest way to start posting short form notes, kind of like Twitter-esque posts. You can pull those from your long form content. And then very much like you mentioned, a lot of it is just finding what your own unique kind of capacity is. I believe that is the name of the game. It's not about posting daily, posting 10 times a day, posting 2 times a week, posting at 7 a.m. All of that stuff is really just nonsense if you cannot sustain it. It's just like the best diet doesn't work to lose weight if you quit next week because it's not actually realistic and sustainable for you. So if you can only post 3 notes a week, post 3 notes a week, because if you're still posting 3 notes a week in a year from now, you're going to be a lot further ahead than if you were posting 3 times a day, but couldn't sustain it and you quit after a month. I like to just recommend the baseline of being 3 to 5 times a week for consistency, getting in the reps, getting kind of that repetition of being visible for people on the platform, and then just graduating. Like when you're ready, when that's sustainable, now increase. I'd say the goal would be to try and get kind of 5 to 7 of those short form posts a week, and they can be created in 5 minutes. Like it's not anything crazy to create these. That's kind of the baseline. What I would refer to as like the biggest amplifier to start growing is going to be through collaborations. So collaborating and creating connection on the platform, I would list in roughly a few different buckets. Commenting is going to be one of them. So you need people to start to know who you are so that they start to see your content, engage with you, want to have a reason to subscribe to you and read your stuff. So leaving thoughtful comments with people in your similar niche is going to get you exposure. We know that people see comments. You see platforms like Twitter where they actually show you how many views your comment has got. So we know as marketers that you can get a lot of visibility just by leaving comments.
Oh, LinkedIn has that now too,
Yeah.
Landon.
Yeah. So it's really powerful. Like people can share your comment and things like that. And you can create entire conversation threads off of a good comment. Don't leave comments like, great post. It's not going to get people reading it. Stop taking the post and putting it into AI and leaving a comment that's longer than the post that everybody knows was created with AI. I don't pay attention to these anymore. It's so obvious. Like, oh, your comment sounds better than my actual fucking post did. I know you didn't write it. Be thoughtful. It's so much easier to bookmark 5 to 10 people, open those up in a tab, drop some thoughtful comments on 5 to 10 people's posts, call it a day, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. I call it commenting in the margins. So I'm sitting waiting at the barbershop because obviously with my beard, I'm at the barbershop quite often. And I'll just open up and I'll just leave a few comments. Or you're in an Uber, you're in the Starbucks line. We don't need to overcomplicate the process. It's about finding a way to just install it into our lifestyle and routine. Outside of that, going live is a really, really great amplifier because everything else, we know joint venture marketing, getting in front of somebody else's audience is very beneficial for, kind of borrowing their trust. So when you do a live with somebody, just like we're doing here, we can go live. It's a split screen. We both click that button and email goes out to both of our audiences. Everybody can join and you just start to see an amplification in people that are subscribing to your publication and following you on the platform. Those, I think, are the 3 key things to growth.
Okay.
Then it's sustainability. It's shifting our mindset and removing the expectation of this is going to work tomorrow and just sticking with it. That's really, really kind of the cornerstone of how I recommend people start to grow on the platform.
I think anything related to growth, that's just such a great point. It's remove the attachment to what the outcome is going to be and treat it as a giant experiment because that's what marketing fucking is anyway. I actually bought a lab coat to have fun with sharing. That is seriously. Because marketing it's a giant freaking experiment. We just don't know how it's going to go. One of the things I've heard a client talk about is monetization. So other platforms, you can't really monetize as easily, I think, based on what you're saying. So can you just speak to that a little bit, please?
Yeah, I take a little bit of a contrarian approach with monetizing on the platform. The
we love
default
contrarian stuff here, Landon.
Perfect. So I had a post, it went viral. It's received thousands of comments, thousands of shares, not all good comments. But the default way to monetize on Substack has always been through a paid publication. So you are effectively putting up a paywall. People pay per month to get access to your gated posts. They give you the opportunity to choose. You can have a monthly plan, a yearly plan, and a founding member plan when they subscribe. You can choose which posts are free, which posts are paid. You can choose where in a post the paywall goes. So you can create kind of previews and try and hook people in and get them to pay. That's been what most people have done to monetize.
It's also an interesting strategy from the platform too, isn't it? Because it makes you continue to show up for your audience so that you have to continue to use the platform. So, smart.
Yes. So, and you can see it's different than a platform like Medium where they just charge effectively everybody that wants access. You just have to become whatever it is, $5 a month, I believe it is, to read anything that's not free on the platform. So there's been these kind of traditional models for kind of text-based content. You can also monetize in every other way that you would monetize LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, which is through products and services. So you can write all of your content because you're effectively building an email list. You can have things to sell. And as long as you set up what I refer to as your conversion pathways, you can generate a lot of sales. So with Substack, you have a series of links. Your publication effectively is kind of like a quasi website landing page So you can pin posts that stay there. You can create links. You have a navigation bar. So you'll see on mine, I have it's a Substack note templates, a Substack growth workshop, how to sell on Substack. Those all link to products that are being sold. You can create a welcome email and with your welcome sequence. So you have these opportunities to put your offers in front of people. You can drop in links in every single one of your posts, whether it's in like a PS in the footer or just kind of very naturally as we're like, I could be doing a live and be like, oh yeah, this is what I teach inside of my subliminal selling course. And I'll have people that go buy it while I'm live. You can do the same thing in content. And if you were to think of like pre-sale pages and like direct response marketing, you can take like this similar approach to create content that's relevant to the things that you sell and naturally integrate CTAs into things. It's a very effective way to be able to do things and also a way to do it without feeling like salesy. You're not always like pitching people. You're not sending cold DMs to people on the platform. So I wrote a post and I did an experiment where for 30 days I posted 10 times a day. And I was like, here are the results. It got really great traction. It wasn't a lot of people misinterpreted it that I was telling people to post 10 times a day, which wasn't the point. But inside of it, I was like, I couldn't sustain this after a few days. So I had to build this content calendar in order to track everything. And here is that content calendar. And it was a lead magnet. And I generated hundreds of email subscribers for that. That lead magnet had an email sequence that pushed my course on Substack. So we can use all of these traditional marketing things to monetize on Substack. I anticipate, and I've written a few articles on this, that the traditional model of gating your content on the platform, I'm for it and against it. So I have a lot of friends that's their business model and they make a lot of money with it. The issues that I take with it is from like a coach standpoint or a consultant standpoint is that it now starts to create almost like a secondary business model where now you have you still need to create free content because you have to grow. But you now also have this people paying for things. So you have to create something for them. So that's kind of where I'm like, a lot of people don't understand what it takes to do that. Also at a $5, $10, $20, $25 a month subscription, you need a very large audience for you to make enough money to pay your cell phone bill. So a lot of people are like, the minimum is $5. I'm just going to put a $5 a month subscription. And they're like, why am I not making money? And it's like, well, because you only have 75 subscribers. 3 of them have paid. And it's like somebody like Justin Welsh that comes to the platform with an audience of 300,000 or 400,000 people on his email list, sends out a couple emails. He can get a shit ton of paid subscribers very quickly because the economics are in his favor. So it's very contextual to what people do. Where it makes sense is for people that don't necessarily have products and services to sell. Somebody writes poetry, somebody writes fiction. Totally cool. That's not typically who I serve on the platform. Where I see it going in the future is where everything has gone with marketing. You're going to have to craft a good offer around your paid subscription so that there's a reason for people to pay for it. I don't think you have to make it your content. I actually think I don't want access to your 200 article archive because I don't want to fucking read them. Like, I'm busy enough as it is. It's like, what problem are you going to solve for me? So a lot of what I'm putting my time and effort into is, what would that look like for me? Because where my brain goes as a marketer is, if they start to push people with paid subscriptions in the feed, then I'm going to have to reconsider if I have one or not. So my mind is starting to go into, because they call them paid subscriptions, is going, I'm thinking about it more from the standpoint of access and intimacy and creating a paid community, not necessarily paid access to my content. So what would I be offering if I kept all of my content free? That's how I'm starting to come at it from. So it could be access to courses. It could be effectively no different than if you created a paid community on School, a paid community on Circle. You're just doing it on Substack. That's the mentality that I'm bringing to it. And the interesting part is that a lot of the Substack community is they're creators first. So you're a brand strategist. You probably have seen this as well. People that start from a content first standpoint have a very different understanding of marketing than people that come from marketing first and then come into content. A lot of them don't quite understand, like, well, what do I sell? How do I make money? And then the marketers are like, here's 100 ways to make money, but they have no idea how to build the audience. And these people have the audience. And it's like, we need to merge these things together and go, okay, maybe it's new worksheets, templates, trainings each month that they get access to. Maybe it's exclusive guest interviews like Justin Welsh does. He brings in experts and you get access to those. Something that my community has loved has been like weekly Q&A threads. So it's like, how can you now start to craft an offer that people want to exchange their money with? Because once we reach a critical mass, that paid subscription where people were just like, yes, I want to pay to read Landon, when there's 300 people or 3,000 people that are producing content similar to mine, it's going to be a lot more difficult for me to get their money. But if I have an actual offer that is enticing enough for them and I'm solving the problem that they need to solve, that's when I'm going to be able to stand out from the rest of the competition. So that's a lot of how I'm trying to get people to think about monetization on the platform. But it's like, if you just want to write in your spare time and share your poetry and have people that pay to do it, and you don't really care about making money, and you're not trying to, like, live on the beaches of, wherever country it is, like, you don't need to stress out about those things. Like, alignment and having it contextually support your life is the most important thing. So there's no right or wrong, but if we're trying to maximize it in the coming years, that's how I'm thinking about it.
Oh, there's so much food for thought there, Landon. Thank you so much. I have two final questions. The first one is, what are people not asking you about the platform that you're like, they should be asking me this thing, but they don't know? They don't know what they don't know. What is the thing that they don't know that they don't know?
Yeah, it's a really, really great question. Just trying to see what kind of drops in for me. Most people are still very surface level that are on the platform, and they are all just very focused on how do I get some subscribers. What I wish people would start asking me is, how do I maintain consistency, and how can I embrace the trust in the process and embrace the pursuit? That's really what I love doing, because every business is run by a business person. We know historically that most businesses fail within the first 5 years. Only 10%-ish of businesses ever make over $150,000 a year in Canada. So by definition, 9 out of 10 of them are going to fail. So a lot of it is just like staying in the game long enough. I'm firmly of the belief, a lot of people come at me for it because I'll say, just be consistent, which is, yes, it's the root of it, but yes, it doesn't give you as much tangible advice. But I do believe that if somebody sticks with things, that you are going to get curious about how to improve it. As you write and as things drop in and as people ask questions, things present themselves. And I do believe that you will get interested in how to improve it. But people get so caught up in the expectations that culture and society has placed upon us. So a saying I have is, consistency with expectation breeds resentment. So it's, how do we shift that narrative, and how can we uncover what is holding us back from being consistent? How do we adjust those expectations so that we don't feel like we're failing all the time? So if you expect to put out a post every day and you have 3 kids, work a full-time job, and you're caring for a loved one, it's just not going to fucking happen. So if we can reduce the floor to putting out 1 post a week and you feel like you're winning, the dynamic of that is drastically different. So I really wish people would start to, and it takes a shift in self-awareness, but to understand that there's something beneath that. If you want to get these subscribers, there's a few things and a few boxes we need to check off that just kind of becomes a byproduct of.
That's such great advice, really and truly. And I completely agree 100% with everything you've just said there, because, so many people think that the only way to be successful in business is to hustle and grind, but it doesn't have to be that way. And stepping back, taking time out intentionally to be strategic, to think, to get creative, to put your feet in the grass, to do the things in nature that are going to inspire you, that's where you get the fire in the belly and you get those drops out of nowhere. I always find, like, when I'm in the shower or shoveling horse shit, quite literally the horses, that's when the stuff just hits me. And it's like, oh gosh, it just, like, people say about downloads, and you get these downloads from the universe, and it's like, yeah, that's total bullshit. Until it fucking starts happening to you. And seriously, the only way it can is when you step away. But when you're so attached to the outcome, that's absolutely when you end up disappointed with yourself. And also, it's where your inner critic, it's literally giving them the power to go rampant on you when you become attached to that outcome. So yes to all of that, Landon. Okay, last question. Where can people reach out to you? What do you have coming up? How can they find out, learn more, get your courses, all of the things related to Substack?
Yeah, so my Substack, it's just my name, landonpoburan.substack.com, takes you straight to my publication. landonp.com is my website where everything is linked up as well. But yeah, I've got a lot going on kind of behind the scenes right now. There's a total shift in kind of brand messaging for like the movement that I really want to lead, and kind of like just what we touched on about all of those things that are kind of like the prerequisites and understanding what we actually want to create and not creating what we were told we should be trying to achieve by, the gurus and the experts out there. And I'm just really over people being sold the template that they can copy and paste into their business, but being given the false promise that they're also going to be able to copy and paste the result. So it's like anything can work, but we need to find what's going to work for you. And that's really kind of what this next chapter of me is going to look like. So I have a few things that are going to be coming in the new year, which is a paid community that I'm really trying to figure out the best way to launch it, but it's likely going to come in January, and starting to roll out an offer to help bring brands and coaches over to Substack. It's the reason that I'm now starting to re-expand, because I was the burnout guy. I was, in debt, in therapy, just completely disconnected from myself from trying to be on 9 platforms. But I've been blessed in what I've been able to create over the last 2 to 3 years. And I'm in a point where my mission has grown and I want to help more people. So now I can get some support to start getting onto these other platforms. Because if I want to help people that are on LinkedIn get onto Substack, or people that are on Instagram get onto Substack, well, I'm going to have to be on LinkedIn and Instagram because they don't know about Substack yet. So an offer to help people take their brands and launch it on Substack is going to be something that I'm launching very, very soon.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, folks, you heard it here first. Go and check out the new community. Go and check out the offers, and absolutely follow or subscribe to Landon over on Substack.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
All right, my friend, breathe. That was a lot in the best possible way. But if you just feel like a fire hose about Substack has been coming your way, here's the thing that I want you walking away with. It's not just another platform. It's a blue ocean option, a blue ocean opportunity, even in a world where most of us are really burnt out from trying to be the tallest poppy or stand out in some overcrowded feeds. And Landon did not hold back. And 3 moments I want to anchor for you is that, firstly, Substack rewards depth over how much you post. So if you're tired of chasing hacks, this platform is going to flip that whole game on its head for you. Second is repurposing is your superpower. So whether you already have a podcast or on YouTube or do long form content on LinkedIn, it all becomes written content. So there's no extra pressure, no extra performance or having to go live or do any of that crap. You just repurpose whatever you've already created and you can share it over on Substack too. And the third one, the big one, and you heard me say yes when he said it, was detach from the outcome and treat your marketing like a giant freaking experiment. Because the minute you stop white knuckling the result, shit finally starts working. And folks, listen, if this episode has gotten you thinking, okay, Deirdre, maybe that Substack is worth exploring, then do the smartest thing you can do next. Go check Landon out on Substack and subscribe to his newsletter. He's not teaching theory. He's literally in the trenches building in real time with you. I'll drop his link in the show notes so it's really easy for you to connect with them. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Thank you so much to Landon for being such a generous, grounded voice in a space full of theoretical BS. And hey, you know the score. If you got any value from this episode, please share it with a friend who's been stuck refreshing their feed and their analytics for validation, and be their sign to try something different. Until next time, keep mastering your business.